So today's likely gonna be a packed video. I want to talk about Modern Warfare in two different lights. Today, as you know by the title, we're gonna be talking about changes coming to the game and what is probably gonna be very soon here, whether via playlist updates or via an actual title update, which I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten one since launch day just yet. But we'll talk about 16 changes here that are going to be made. Plus, I also want to talk about things that I want to see changed. I know that there's a lot of people out there that want to hear my opinion on the game and what I've been experiencing with it. I've been kind of just objective and to the point with a lot of the stuff we're talking about here. I haven't given my input or anything like that. So today I want to kind of tackle both, let you guys know what to expect, but also some of the things that I see could be fixed out within this game. So that said, if you have anything you'd like to add to the list, maybe when we get to my part about talking what I'd like to see changed, or if there's anything that you know will be changed that maybe I missed, feel free to let me know in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, do be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare as we continue the daily content here, talking about all things you need to know. That said, let's jump into it. Let's talk about the changes firstly here and what you can expect with, again, either a playlist update or a title update, pending nothing happening between making this video and when it actually goes live. These things are still on the horizon. Firstly, one big thing is that of a fix for the newest feature introduced, that being trials and their XP rewards. Now, trials was something that was leaked before launch, changed out ever so slightly, and now would task a player with completing a specific sort of mini game or something like you'd see in FNG from the previous Call of Duty Modern Warfare titles. And if you scored a certain star percentage or higher, you'd end up getting XP rewards as a bonus for that. Just kind of a fun little thing to do and also gain a little bit more XP out of that. But upon its release and upon players jumping in for the first time, it actually was something that did not award XP. It just wasn't giving it, even though players were scoring it. This has actually been since removed to avoid any loss in time and XP in the meantime, but should be making a return sometime shortly with a fixed XP yield. The second change you can expect comes down to something within Ground War that has definitely drove me insane, that being tanks with point man counting towards streaks. Previously, this actually even counted towards the nuke streak. Not even kidding. But when I talked to David Mickner at Infinity Ward the other day, he told me they got it after hearing that feedback. So that at least should be taken care of already. But players that use point man and tanks are still getting credit for those kill streaks, which is going to be fixed out relatively shortly. Number 3 up on this list is of course one that is a big issue for Xbox players, that being the fact that the Xbox will hard reset in some instances. The one that I see now prominently is that of on the map Piccadilly, so that should be getting fixed out relatively shortly. Additionally, tack inserts are still having some issues in Ground War, causing an unbreakable loop of deaths, where whenever you end up utilizing that tack insert when you spawn back in, you'll be well behind the enemy's safe zone and where it says you're outside of the playable area and to return to combat. But you're so far back that you literally cannot do that, and of course, even if you could, you'd still be spawning with the enemy who likely could just be watching you spawn over and over and over. And in some instances, I even saw some footage of players spawning under the map already just in a free fall until they died and did it again. Next up in terms of changes come weapon rewards being denoted as different variations in rarity. Such things including the Urban Defiler pistol, which is awarded for completing the Weapon Master challenge, as well as the Judgment shotgun, which is awarded for completing the Well-Equipped challenge. Those have different rarities and in some instances aren't rewarded. Talking challenges a little further, the Commando challenge specifically for the 357 isn't actually listed in some cases for some players. In general, we'll come back to it. Camo challenges are kind of bugged out all over the place, but again, we'll talk about that a little bit further in just a second. After that, though, we end up seeing that the Mark II or MK2 ends up having an issue where it will continue reloading even though it's at full ammo capacity. That's just a bug that I have absolutely no idea why it persists, but it's being fixed out. After that, there's going to be some fixes made for kill streaks in-game. First bug being the fact that they don't appear on a player's HUD sometimes, and then you'll also end up having the bug where it will actually change them. And so what you had selected before the game or the last game won't actually be what you had. I know that I personally haven't experienced this, but my good friend Zach ended up experiencing this in his playtime with me, and he mentioned it a lot as of recently, so it's definitely a weird one, but it's getting fixed out. Another one is the fact that the enemy view models will be something fixed out in the sense that sometimes they're not pointed towards the player. So it creates this illusion of the player looking one way and shooting another, whereas on your screen, they're not looking at you, but when in fact they may be. So that's something that will be fixed out as well. For Xbox One players, this is going to fix out some issues where the XRK weapons pack may not be showing up for some of you guys as well. We'll see a fix coming for that one. Then the final two things here that will actually be confirmed as changes being looked into, and not just necessarily talking points, are that of the progression on launchers and not tracking for their unlocks and also some camos, but also talking progression of camos just in particular. The progression bars overall aren't tracking. This to me, I've primarily seen it on camos. I've seen it on a couple of other things as well, but primarily on camos for me, in which it showcases consistently 0 out of however many you need here for that. The nice part though is that it's still tracking in the background, it just isn't showcasing it visually, which is of course nice that you don't lose any progress, but it's kind of irritating if you're just trying to see how many you're away from completion on a specific challenge, instead of just simply guessing like I've personally had to do the last couple of days. At first you could end up restarting your application and it would refresh that number for you, but now it's to the point where if you get that glitch where it shows a 0 out of X amount of total, it'll stick with you. So that's unfortunate, but will be fixed out. Joe Seacott also mentioned over on Twitter the other day that the following 4 things will be looked at, and we'll be seeing potentially some changes and tuning coming in the next title update here for this. Firstly, footstep audio. That's of course one that is an absolutely big topic of discussion. The fact that they are so loud and that dead silence is really not as much a counter as it should be, being that it's a field upgrade and not a perk. Claymore interaction is also something that is apparently going to be fixed out as well. The way that I take this is that it's the directional blast radius for this, because as intended, damage will be dealt in that direction which it was pointed. But right now it seems to do damage in a full 360 degrees, and especially if you end up seeing one and then shooting it from behind, it will still inflict damage, though that's not as intended. Another thing that was mentioned as a fix to be coming here, or something at least looked at, was that of spawns. Now, this is a full general topic which we'll talk about in just a second when we dive into my thoughts on it. And then finally, then we'll end up seeing that battle chatter in single life modes will also be looked at, and adjustments will be made there as well. So quite a bit up on deck, but a lot of stuff that is technical, and still some of the glaring issues the community has had not really mentioned in the slightest. So when we think about this kind of stuff, great, sure, that the bugs and all that kind of stuff are going to be addressed, that they're going to be fixed out very soon, and that's of course what the immediate post-launch schedule looks like every single year. There is way more data, way more things tested in a live environment out of the millions of players than in-house they could ever do. You can do more with 1 million players naturally in a week than you could over perhaps a year of a 20-man QA team testing everything. So naturally things will be found that slip through the cracks. Those are going to be fixed out, but let's talk about what I want to see tuned and the problems that I've had with the game currently. First thing, let's come back to that spawn topic. Now, I have no idea what's going to happen from an official capacity, any changes or any discussion that will be made on spawns, but I know for a fact that right now they are, how do I put this, awful. So much so to the point that it's partially, there's a number of reasons why I'm not a huge fan of it. I really don't touch 6v6 or 10v10 at the very moment. Ground War is kind of the only thing I've been playing, not only because I like the chaos of it and all that, and it feels a little bit more like the faster pace of COD that I'm used to, but the fact that spawns aren't as sticky. Case in point being some of the spawns on, say, Cave or Piccadilly. Piccadilly is probably one of the worst that I've seen it, because you can literally have one team in a team deathmatch controlling 90% of the playable map, and the spawns will not flip. I don't know how many of you guys have ever experienced this, but you can literally push them all the way back to behind the garage entrance, if you want to call it that, on Piccadilly, and they just won't flip. They will literally stay there, and you utilize probably about 20% of the entire map in a 10-minute match. That's actually insane to me. And there are multiple cases where that will happen across other different maps. Now, one also thing is the fact that I've seen, not even in Ground War, but in standard modes, players being able to watch players spawn as well. That stuff should never happen. Now, I don't know what is supposed to happen to remedy this. I don't know how you fix this. I'm no spawn engineer. I just know that something needs to be done. And same thing with Ground War. One thing that I absolutely am not a fan of is the fact that some of these spawns you can literally watch players spawn. And I understand that's ground war. There's way more players than that than any Call of Duty player probably ever anticipated. 32v32 and what is rumored to be 50v50 now at this point, coming later on, and maybe even upwards of that. But when you have things like, say, I choose to spawn on B flag on Karst. Whenever I spawn not on B flag, but instead in the very middle of the courtyard with zero cover and a roof, multiple windows just filled with enemies looking out there and dying immediately, that stuff shouldn't happen. I don't know why if I spawn on B, I don't spawn in the protection either upstairs or downstairs, but just somewhere where I'm not immediately taken out. Or not immediately taken out by a tank even, which we'll get to that in a second. The next big part of this game that drives me up a wall is the camping, and we'll talk about this in a couple of different ways that I want to see some remedies made. Firstly, Ghost. I cannot stand the fact that we went back to the old style of Ghost. Yes, for some players this is a blessing. Yes, for some players it makes total sense that if you're a Ghost, you're off the grid. But make it in line with the recent variations of Ghost. To me, you should never be protected or given the benefit when you're literally just sitting in a corner for 5 minutes waiting for one kill. That is not what Call of Duty has been built on. That is not something that should be played like that. Get out there. How you pay $60 for a game? Why would you do that? Why would you waste that much time for one kill? And why is somebody being rewarded that way? Personally, I just don't think that Ghost should be an issue. It was something complained about way back in the day when it was like this beforehand, and that was what prompted the change in recent years. So why did we go back? Another thing is the Claymore spam. Now, this obviously you can't just completely get rid of Claymores. It's part of the game. That's something that is developed for playable use, but I think you can mitigate it in some ways. Such things maybe being nerf the damage, maybe have an EOD buff where EOD may become a crutch perk, which I would not like to happen. I quite like my overkill if I'm honest with you, but maybe that's the way that we do it. Or maybe just remove the ability to use them with restock, where you have the ability to get them back and back and back, and it again just promotes endless camping. Same thing goes then for a traditional minimap. While I understand the design intent and wanting to change things up, where we have now the minimap, that's nice and all, but again, it doesn't encourage movement as much as if it were the traditional minimap. Sure, you have your fire up on your compass. That's cool. I understand that you want to do something different with that, but with the fact that players aren't showing up on the minimap, or even potentially if they're close enough in that general vicinity of you, it doesn't encourage them to move whenever they know they're really not going to get punished too much by an enemy player being somewhere in the general vicinity. Honestly, I think a combination of those three things, some reworks for those, and camping becomes a little less frequent. Now, of course, that's not to say that the maps overall don't encourage some camping. There's definitely plenty of parts on maps that you're just like, why is that there? My case in point is the cliffside on Karst River Quarry. I don't think that should be accessible at all. It's just a camper's haven up on that ridgeline, and there's just so many tanks. That's not playing the game to me. And of course, there's gonna be those comments, oh, just adapt, Jordan. I mean, I got a 2.27 KD and a decent score per minute, so I mean, I'm kind of thinking I'm doing okay. It's just so damn annoying to see so many people sitting in dark corners, not showing up on the minimap, not showing up on the radar, and so many matches going to time limit. Not score limit, time limit. 10 minutes where you won't finish a match. That stuff just, it's not fun in that capacity. Outside of that, I'd love to see some weapon tuning. That's bound to happen, of course. That will happen. But things like the M4 being toned down a little bit, things like the 7.25 being toned down a little bit. That thing is an absolute sniper rifle. The PKM is one that has some mobility properties that rival that of the Titan and being in its OP form back in Black Ops 4. Things like that. I'd like to see some adjustments made on that. I'd also love to see some map voting implemented. Not like there's a huge selection of maps to begin with, but the fact that we don't have a single say as a community, and when we jump out of lobbies while we refresh lobbies every single game, that kind of stuff I'd like to see added and adjusted. And also finally, I guess the one topic I can touch on, though truthfully in Ground War, I don't think that I've experienced it all that much because if it's even a thing, I don't know. It could very well be a placebo and a scapegoat for people doing subpar for where they expect to be. Again, my ignorance comes in not really playing 6v6 or 10v10 all that much, but skill-based matchmaking, if that's actually a thing, get that out of there. Save that for your ranked playlist coming later next year, if that's still going to be a thing. But anyways, that's where I'm at here with it. That's the stuff that drives me up a wall, the stuff that otherwise I'm really enjoying, save for those couple of main issues that I've been having. And also, that's the changes you can expect coming here in the very near future. Again, I'm kind of surprised that in the first week, we've not seen another title update since launch day. We had the day one patch and update there, and then we saw, I think it was 1.04, if I'm not mistaken, for title update for Modern Warfare. But since then, a full week with how many things that have been buggy, some things that could use tuning, we haven't seen anything since then. So when we get that, your guess is as good as mine. I'm hoping as soon as possible, maybe tomorrow. Maybe we continue those updates on Tuesdays like we did with Black Ops 4, in which case maybe this upcoming Tuesday we see a larger title update, maybe some content dropping, who knows. But that said, that's where we're going to wrap it up. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Is there anything in particular that you think I may have missed here? Anything that you're looking forward to being fixed? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare. And if you guys want to get connected with me outside of YouTube a little bit further, Twitter and Instagram are the best places to do so. So if you guys want to get connected a little bit further, those links are down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.